Hi, how you guys doing? Here's a piece in our Q2 project about data visualization. Now at this point everybody should have an exam that collects answers from students, decides whether they're right or wrong, or how many points to give them, and stores this data in some sort of variable somewhere in your document. So that's where it should be at. Now some of you guys have done some more work with the visualization piece than others, which is fine. I'm just going to show you today how to, what a good workflow for coming up with how to represent this data is. So there are APIs that do this. Google Chart API is one. Graphs are data visualizations. So if you can think of something that you would rather just use a Google Chart for, go for it. A bar graph, line graph, all that stuff. The problem though is that they really don't allow you to customize much of what you're seeing on the screen. So that's what we're going to do with this tutorial. I'm going to show you how to build a custom visualization piece using an HTML element that you've never seen before called the canvas. So without further ado, let's begin. So all of you have this table, probably something like this, made in your test already. This is what we did at the end of the last tutorial. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to kind of take this table and just comment it out for now. In fact, I'm going to take the score node where I say how many answers were right out of 5. I'm going to comment that out too. You don't necessarily have to, but we're just going to comment it out for now. I don't want to delete it just in case I need something, but yeah. Alright, so to start working with the canvas, which allows you to draw things, we need to make a variable for it. So variable canvas is document.getElementById canvas. Oops, sorry, I lied. It's not getElementById, it's createElement. Canvas. Okay, and if you have more than one of these, you probably want to give this one an ID. So we're going to set the attribute of the canvas. We're going to set its ID to main canvas. Alright, that's probably just for CSS purposes or whatnot. Alright, so drawing on the canvas. There are a couple things you need to know. So there's a lot of things that the canvas can do. You can handle animation, you can handle 3D objects, but we're going to start with the basics, which is just drawing shapes and drawing lines. So to draw a line, you're usually looking for what's called a stroke, and to draw a shape, you're usually looking to do what's called a fill. Fills are generally defined alongside like rects or some sort of shape declaration. Lines, can be, strokes are usually the outside of one of those rects. So if you want just a straight line, you'd create a rect with the height of 1 or a width of 1, depending on if it's a horizontal or vertical line. But you get my drift. So what I want to do is I want to create a visualization that is a bar filling up with the number of answers that my user got right. So to do this, we're going to have to get what's called the context of the canvas. And we want the two-dimensional context of the canvas. So we need to do canvas.getContext. We need to specify that we want the 2D context. Okay, if you get the 3D context, you can draw in 3 dimensions. We're just going to draw in 2 dimensions right now. Alright. So whenever you draw anything, you have to begin the drawing path using this function. Okay, begin path opens up a new path to draw things in the canvas, so we need a begin path. Okay. And what I think we'll do is we'll draw the outside rect first, and then we'll draw the inside rect. Okay, so we'll do context. I think it's set fill rect. I think. Let's double check. That's the wrong one. I lied. Where are you? I don't know if it's set fill rect or dot rect. Rect. It's dot rect. Okay. So it's not this. So we need to do context dot rect. Now the way that rect paths work is you get the x value, the y value, the width, and the height. So you need to put numbers there to say where you're going to draw it. So let's just give some offset to the bar here, the rectangle. So we'll give it 5 for the x origin, 5 for the y origin, and I'm going to make it 200 pixels long and I don't know, 50 pixels high. Okay, cool. All right, so that we have that. We also need to set fill color, as I believe what the function is, but again, I could be wrong. Oh, no, it's fill style. Look at that. So it's context.fill style, and it's equal to any color you want. So let's just turn this into gray first. Now, if I want to be specific with the color, we could go to color.adobe.com. We could pick out a color. Let's say we want to fill it up with green to show that the student is getting it right. So we probably want some sort of color scheme. I'm going to pick the shades one. I want it to be of green. I want one of these to be gray. Maybe it needs to be monochrome. This is where my knowledge of this is bad. So let's pick this gray and this green. So we're going to take this hex color, and we'll, instead of gray, we'll do that. I think this actually needs to be in quotes, to be honest with you. Okay. And then we'll tell it to fill. And I think you have to do it with the parentheses at the end. Let's just make sure. Yes, parentheses at the end. Okay, context.fill. All right, cool. And then we always want to make sure that we close the path when we're done drawing a shape, unless we want to draw more shapes with the same style. You can only really have one style per path, right? So let's save that, and let's see what happens when we load it up. Sure. Random answers, tons, random answers. Okay, so it looks like we have our rect here, and it is that gray, but actually, it seems like it's too small. Something's wrong. Oh, actually, it might not have. We might not have even done it. You know what we forgot to do? We forgot to append the canvas to our main div. Main.appendChild canvas. There we go. Don't forget to append the canvas. It is an HTML element, so it does need to be appended to your body somewhere. All right, there we go. There's our gray div, and it's a little tall, so I'm going to change it down to 20 for the height, or maybe 30. Okay, cool. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to have the bar fill up based on the number of answers the student got right. So here is the outer rectangle. We want to make the inner rectangle. Okay, so we want this to fill up based on the number of answers the student got right. So we need to begin path. We need to set the rect. Now, it's going to use the same coordinate system, so we need to, you start at the same x and y coordinates. Now, the width is what's going to be tricky. So we basically want the bar to fill up. So what we probably want to do is we probably want to multiply, we want to take the number of questions on our test. I have 5, so that's 200 divided by 5. And we want to multiply that by the number the student got right, which I have stored in a variable called current score. So if we multiply current score by 200 divided by a number of questions, that should allow us to set the width dynamically of the bar, and then it should also be the same height as the one above. Okay. All right, now let's make our fill style. Let's go back to our color scheme. I want it to be this green to fill up. Then pound sign. and now we want it to fill, and now we want to close path. And hopefully, if all goes according to plan, let's see what happens. Okay, so as we can see, the bar is filling, which is good. That's what we're shooting for. It's not quite enough contrast, so I think what I'm going to do is maybe I'll pick a more white color for the background. Let's pick this one. Okay, that'll give us a little bit more contrast than we had before with this gray, which clearly is not enough. And also, I think I want to put some text, inside the bar to show how many answers the student got right. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to need to open a new path. So here's for the correct number text. So we're going to need to open a new path, begin path. And then we need to do a little bit different with the text. And I think if I remember correctly, let's see, I had it here. Where are you? There you are. Okay. So for text, we want to set the font. Which you do like this. You tell it how many pixels. Let's say 16 pixels. And then we'll say Georgia. Or actually, I don't like Georgia. Let's use Gil Sands. Actually, I don't like that one. We'll just use Georgia. Fine. Okay. And then now what you have to do is you have to fill the text with arguments here. This will be the X and Y offsets of where the text should go. So it really should go inside this rectangle. So let's fill it to be 5.0, 5.0, and see what happens. Okay. And of course we need to close the path. And actually, if we want to set the color of the text before we fill the text, we could set the fill style too. So let's set the fill style. We probably want it to be white, actually. White will show up nicely on the green. So we also need to say what the text is gonna say, which goes in here too. And I'm actually just gonna have it be the number that they got correct. All right, so let's save it. Let's load it up, see what happens. All right, so we have a little bit more contrast going on, which I think we could solve with a little bit of a border. The number, though, doesn't seem to be getting into our box. It looks like we need to increase the Y offset there of that number quite a bit. So let's change it to 25. We'll see how that goes. Now, about the border, we definitely want to have a border around here. I think I want to have an enclosing border around the entire rectangle. So to our outer rectangle path, what we want to do is we want to set the stroke width, I believe it is. Let's see. See, I can never remember what each of these methods do, but it's perfectly okay. Once you start drawing a lot on the canvas, you'll start to remember these a lot more. I just can never remember what it is. All right, it's line width. So it's dot line width, and we're going to set it to, let's just, 3 is fine. Actually, it might need to be without quotes. Okay. We also want to set the stroke style. Notice how there's fill style and stroke style. I want this one to be black. Let's just make it solid black. And then we need to stroke, which tells it to draw. Okay, let's see what we got. All right, so as you can see, we have the number in our green bar here, showing, I guess, how many out of the 5 they got correct. It looks like the border around the rectangle is a little too big, and also if you see this enclosed rectangle here is kind of encroaching on the border. We can fix that by moving it down another 2 pixels and shrinking it by 4, because it needs to shrink on the bottom side too. So let's just make those improvements real quick. We'll increase the offset of the text. make it 10. We want the inner rectangle to move down by 2 pixels and its width reduced by 4. And actually, instead of doing that, let's move it down by 1. I'd actually like to shrink this to a 2. Okay. All right, anyway, we're just doing some small adjustments. It's not, this is not too important. I just would like to have something that looks remotely good for you guys. Okay, and there we go. So that's just a very basic example of how to draw literally your own custom data visualization on the HTML5 canvas. To learn more about the canvas and what you can do, this website's great, HTML5 Canvas Tutorials. W3 Schools also works well to tell you about this. Now, you can continue to add multiple canvases to the document. The dimensions are just like that of a div. If you'd like to add multiple canvases with the same strokes and the same rectangles and things like that, put this in a function. You can reuse this code multiple times, and it's perfectly fine. But that'll do it for this tutorial. The next one, I'll show you how to do circles, if you'd like to do that. Anyway, see ya.